Welcome to this webinar. Today we will cover MALÅ Vision, a quick introduction to MALÅ Vision, and we are including the recent updates we have made. We have the agenda for today is basically this introduction that I'm doing right now, and the bulk of the presentation will be presenting the software live. We have a few different data sets. We are covering an archaeological investigation from the UK, a utility detection case in the United States, and then we will show what object mapper projects and 3D grid projects look in MALÅ Vision as well. And at the end, we will have a moment where we will answer questions. You could post your questions to the chat window during the time that we are presenting, and we'll bring them up at the end. We will answer them then. We have a lot of different. There is a demonstration data set included when you register. There is a demonstration data set included, and that is actually data set number 2. If there are other data sets that you would like to use or try, you could contact us, and we will help you to get some good data sets to use with MALÅ Vision if you want. Otherwise, just use your own. The presentation will take about 1 hour. We will finish within the hour, and we are 2 presenters today.
Yes, and my name is Andreas Wiberg. I work as the Associate Product Manager for GPR and working with product management together with Jesper. I've been working for the company for the last 4 years. Before that, I worked as a researcher and teacher at Stockholm University, primarily focused on archaeological geophysics.
And my name is Jesper Emilsson. I started working for the first time for this company in 1995. So I've been around for a while, working as a product manager the last 7 years, I believe. Could be wrong, but I think I'm right. So today, MALÅ Vision is a software we introduced last year in November, and we promised then that we will continue and continuously update this software, which we have done. For those of you who have logged in, pretty much every other week at least there is a new release out, or we have changed things in it. It's an easy to use, reliable, it's cloud-based software and very precise for analysis, processing, interpretation, and reporting of GPR data and projects. Together with the MALÅ Controller app, we believe it's the most efficient solution to go from data collection to results. We are building on the tradition of creating professional but easy to use solutions for GPR data and data management. So why did we develop it? Basically, it was something that our customers for a long time has been saying that we need better software to handle our data and our data projects. So it's built on customer requests, and our vision is that we want to help our customers to better understand near surface geophysical data and efficiently deliver precise results. In short, we are helping our customers to mapping the subsurface. It also fills a need. It fills a need in the marketplace that we've seen for a while, that we need a better software solution for GPR data. There has been a need for that for some time, and we think this is the right solution for the majority of our customers. By the end of the year, our vision is that 80% of our customers will be satisfied with what MALÅ Vision can bring. I want to highlight a few features. It's completely platform independent and web-based. It's a cloud-based solution, and all the updates are coming. It's automated, so every time you log on, there might be changes, and we will go through where you can see what has happened to the software. Every time it will be displayed as you log in. We have a dedicated software team that is working with MALÅ Vision all the time. So that's why we need feedback from users. It's feedback driven. So when our users comes to us with requests, we will prioritize them, of course, according to how many people that needs a certain feature, and try to implement this as quickly as possible. We have tried to make it intuitive and easy to use, both for 2D and 3D data. It supports today all MALÅ data and projects. We have built a workflow that is simple, so that you will see once we get into the live demonstrations that it's very easy to understand how you're going through the software in order to produce the results that you need. It's a modern interface, and we don't have any dongles or any protection. As soon as you register, you have a free of charge community license. The only thing that limits the community license is the amount of storage space that you can store, where you can store data. Together with the MALÅ controller app, MALÅ Vision is an in-the-field processing, interpretation, and reporting software. So basically, you can collect your data with MALÅ controller app, and you can immediately open all your data for visualization and processing, interpretation, and reporting directly in the field. And of course, as I already said, MALÅ controller app is fully integrated with this. So it's basically building on to the data collection part. So it will be a faster way for users to deliver results to customers. There are 3 tiers planned. Available today is MALÅ Vision Community and the MALÅ Vision Single tier. The only difference between these two are the amount of data that you can store in the cloud-based solution. So you pay for the storage space. The functionality of MALÅ Vision Community is the same as for MALÅ Vision Single, as well as for the MALÅ Vision Team later on. Team is something that we are releasing later on. So back to the demonstration. We have three different types of data that we are planning to release, and at the lower right-hand corner, you can also see the address to malavision.guideline.com, where you can register and sign up for MALÅ Vision community license, and you can try it within a few minutes. It's immediate. And now I think I hand over to Andreas, who will present the first dataset.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen, and we'll move over to the actual software. So we'll start by taking a little tour, looking at different parts of the software, and when that's done, we'll move over to the archaeological data set to look at some processing and visualization in MALÅ Vision. So on the when you've registered and logged into your account, this is the start page. You will have a new project button for creating new projects. You will have an open project button to access your already created projects. We also highlight the latest changes on the start page. So this could be a good place to start to look at what we've included since the latest release. In the top right corner, we also have a button which will take you to the subscription page. As Jesper mentioned, we have a free of charge MALÅ Vision community license that gives you 50 megabytes of data storage space. If you wish to upgrade, you would need a subscription that will give you 100 gigabytes of storage space. So by clicking that button, you will be taken directly to the page where you add your information for the subscriptions. In the top left corner, we have the main menu. So just popping that open, you can see that the start and home screen button will take you back to what you see right now. The account settings is where you control your email address and your password for your account. If we click the projects, button, you can see that this is where we keep the already created project for your license. We also have a used space bar here, so you can see how much storage space that you have used and the limit of your account according to your license. Moving back to the main menu, application settings is something that I think Jesper will talk more about later on. This is where you change from meter to feet, for example. You can, if you're working, for example, with utility detection, you can select which marker template you would like to use for your markers. So we have a UK, US, Canada one and one for Australia currently. Moving back to the main menu, the subscription page looks like this. This is where you actually end up if you click that top right button on the start page. So if you need more storage space, this is where you add your information, your country and your credit card details, and this will immediately give you access to the 100 gigabyte secure storage. Help and support. We want your feedback, and this is probably the easiest way of sharing your thoughts and your questions with us. Just select the type of input you would like to provide or your topic, and then enter your comments into this box and send it over to us, and we will contact you with a response. And we are using this feedback to decide where to go when it comes to developing new features and exciting new things in the software. So we would really encourage you all to sign up and provide your feedback. Terms and policy, a document to read through basically, and then an About MALÅ Vision button where you get information on the version number and when it's last been updated. Okay, so let's move back to the start page. And Jesper was talking about easy workflow, and that's something we have tried to highlight here in the top left corner underneath the main menu. So this is the start page. We then move on to importing the data that you want to work with. We then move over from the import to the actual processing of the data, visualization, interpretation. That's done during the process step. And then we move on to export, where you export your data. So let's start by creating a new project. So we click the new project button on the start page. We can, we'll name it archaeology. I already have that name in here. We'll call it archaeology 1. So this data set that we're going to look at is from a Roman site in the UK. And we are indebted to Dr. Chris Lockyer at University College London and his team of volunteers that make up the Community Archaeology Geophysics group in the UK for the use of this data set. So at this stage, you can either click the Browse Files button here to add your data, or we can open up a different window and you can simply take your folder. In this case, it's a zipped folder, and drop that straight onto the software in the upload window. MALÅ Vision will then automatically extract all the files that is necessary for creating the project. And when you click the upload files, you get sort of instant access to working with your data. So the first thing that happens is that you will be brought into the 2D section of the software. I'll zoom in a bit so you can see see the data a bit better. To the left, we have a hidden pane. If you click that, a list of the profiles that you've just imported will pop out, and you can easily just click the different rows to switch between your different profiles. Or you can use the page up and page down button for a quicker browsing through the profiles. To the right, we have a toolbox. This contains options for filtering. So basically, if you would like to add a filter, you simply click the Add Filter button, and then you will get a list of the different available filters. For example, let's add an FK migration. Click it, and you simply adjust the velocity of your data set to match, and you will have applied the filters. And everything we do in here is actually brought over to the 3D environment at a later stage. So we'll have a look at that as well. So that's easy. You can toggle the filters on and off, and you can remove any filters that you don't want to have included in the filter stack. Display effects is basically just controlling the contrast and the gray balance of your profile. You also have the option of changing the color palettes and adjusting them down here. So easily just right click one of the nodes and then select whatever color you would prefer. We have an interpretation section as well. I think Jesper will focus a bit more on this, so I'll leave this for now, but it's where you add different markers to your data to interpret them basically. And down here to the far right, we have the analysis tool. So here you can either flip the profile end to end. You can toggle the scale on the left-hand side of your profile from depth to time and back. You can add the velocity of your data set either by selecting a predefined material where you get suggestions on the velocity, or you can use something that I think Jesper will show later on, the hyperbola fitting tool to get at the correct velocity of the data set that you're working with. And this is of course important to get correct depths when you're doing the conversion from time to distance. There's also options of setting time zero, which is also an essential part of that. You can do that automatically, or you can do it manually. Simply place that wherever you would like it to be, and it will be adjusted accordingly. If there is something you wish to document, we have a snapshot tool, which can be accessed here. This is the camera icon. So if there's something specific that you would wish to save, you can use the snapshot tool to save the current workspace. And these can also be accessed from this lower pane, where you get a list of these snapshots. And in this snapshot, you can also add markers and also free draw if there's something you want to highlight. Moving back to the GPR data is done here at this drop down. You just select GPR data. That will bring you back to where you were. So if we move over to 3D, this is where we get to see all the profiles. And as I mentioned, the processing will be updated. So if you do something in the 2D view and then move over to the 3D view, all the filters will be applied to all of these as well. On the left-hand side, you still have the list of profiles. If you click one of those, you will be brought back to the 2D view. And you can also do that by clicking one of the profiles here. that will also bring you back. If you left click, if you right click, it will hide the profile that you're clicking. So that's an easy way to look through your data basically and evaluate what you have. You can also hide and unhide profiles by clicking the little eye icon in the list of profiles to the left. To the right, the toolbox have changed appearance slightly. So it has changed into a section where you can do an interpolation. You can interpolate all of these different profiles into a 3D volume or create depth slices in an easy way. So basically just select the interpolation method that you want to use. You can also set the resolution of the data set that you want to work with. So let's change these parameters slightly. And when that is done, simply click the play button to start the interpolation process. And that's something that will be carried out in the background. So it allows you to continue to work, to continue to interpret your data while that is still working in the background. When that is done, you will get a notification saying that the interpolation is done, and then you will have sort of these grayed out sections of the toolbox activated. So this basically will allow you to switch between different views. We have a 3D cube view, we have a time slice view, and we have an isosurface view. And you can also choose to hide the interpolation if you want to look at the profiles. So now we get a message that the interpolation is done. You can see that these have been activated. So the 3D cube view is something that you can crop. Let me hide the profiles first. And then we can start cropping. As you can see, we can crop in different directions. So you can actually access and visualize the data in different ways. If we look at this from the top, we have presumably some nice Roman buildings in here. So these are the outlines of the buried foundation walls of a Roman building. So they appear quite clearly. You can also, of course, in this section, change the color of your palette if you wish to visualize this in a different palette. I mentioned the time slice view. Works in a similar way. It's just a thin slice instead. So fairly easy to handle. And finally, we have an isosurface view where the strong reflections will turn into an isosurface, and you can crop this, of course, to your liking and change the threshold to enable the features in the data to pop out more clearly. And all of these views here can, of course, be combined with the profiles. So if I just add some of the profiles back, you can quite clearly see also that the foundation walls that we see in the time slice view or in the 3D cube view also matches up quite nicely with the strong reflections in the profiles. We also have something called profile threshold, and if I just turn off the 3D cube view, turn on all the profiles, and then start adjusting this threshold value, you can see that it also removes the weaker responses, and you're left with basically the strong responses. And even in this view, you can actually see that this is some kind of walls or foundations from a building. That's also a way to enhance your visualization. If you want to save things, you can click the snapshot tool. You can hide the coordinates if you want to have an uninterrupted view of your data. We'll select a few snapshots. And as I mentioned before, they can easily be accessed here. They will also be available if you're creating a report. So I'll move into that section because the next step here is to look at the export tools that we have. If I select create report, you can see that our snapshots will end up here in the left-hand side of the report tool. So you can add the text, you can add the images, which will appear in your report. And then you can either export that to a PDF or to a Word document if you need further word processing capabilities. We also have the possibility of exporting different things. You can export the actual GPR data. You can export interpretations. You can export images and snapshots. So let's say I would like to export some snapshots. Select that, all snapshots, original format, and then click the export button. And that will give you a zipped folder, which will contain all the images that we have just collected with the snapshot tool. Of course, if you want to add different kinds of things to the export, simply press the plus sign. Then you can add a GPR data, for example, to your export. You can add interpretations. If you've added markers, you can export those as text files, CSV, KMZs for Google Earth, and DXF for AutoCAD. And we also support something called polylines that Jesper will talk a bit more about later on, but that could also be exported as a DXF. If I press export at this time, everything will end up in a zipped folder. And this zipped folder is also something that you can easily drop directly back into MALÅ Vision again, and it will extract the necessary files and provide you with whatever you've exported. So it's a way of saving your projects and data as well. Okay, I think that's about what I had to say for this particular data set, and I will now give the sharing capabilities here over to Jesper, who will talk a bit more about the utility data sets from the US.
I will gladly do so. I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Very good. So Andreas has gone through the fundamentals and the basics of the software. So I will basically just do almost the same as he. I will start a new project. I will use the browse for files. And I have some data here from Charleston, South Carolina. I'll choose the data sets and including an image. I open them and I can see that all my 27 files associated to the data has been imported, plus the image file, and then I chose to upload it to my project. And I can, as Andreas already shown, I can see my data on screen straight away. I will adjust for the time zero. I use the automatic tool. The filters, there are some default filters that are always turned on: DC offset, AGC, and background removal. I can turn them on or trash them at any points. But I choose to just use the default filters that has been added. On the left-hand side, again, I have my GPR data, all the profiles that I've added. In this case, it's 9. I also can see the images that I chose to import. Initially, the important thing, if you want to know where the depth, how deep your various utilities are, And we can see that in this particular case, we have some clear responses from point reflectors. I can choose to go to the sitemap. This is collected with using a GPS. So I can view my data. You can see that this is in the Charleston area. If I zoom out a little bit, we can see where this is. It's in United States, just South Carolina. Then I just need to find my way back. This is always a bit of a nuisance. And I can view my profiles on this map, and the green end of this profile, this is just the profile lines. And we can see they're all more or less parallel, and the green indicates starting points, and the red is the end point. So we can see that all these profiles are running in the same direction. If I move back to my 2D section, what is important to establish is in order to get a correct depth to the utilities I interpret, it's important to get a correct velocity. Of course, the velocity in the ground, if it's in a small area, the velocity won't vary too much. And this software at this point will assume that you will find some sort of a average velocity. I can use the hyperbola fitting tool in order to analyze for a correct velocity. I just choose it, and then I point and click with my right hand, and I can see that I enter a hyperbola into my data set. I can then adjust the velocity to make this match my response. I can choose to move this in order to see how it changes. So I would say that is probably about correct. You can see that you will see that the velocity varies slightly between different profiles, but it's still fairly accurate. So I can add more hyperbolas too. This is just the first one. I could add another one if I need to, and place them in different profiles. In any case, I think that we have roughly a correct velocity in 93. So I will use that later when we migrate the data. I'm just going to hide that profile or this hyperbola. I will add the migration filter. I actually prefer to make the interpretation using the hyperbolas because I'm just used to doing so. But in this case, I will add the migration first. I will enter you can see now it's slightly over migrated. If I move down to 93, we can see that, well, there are some that are a little bit over migrated, but if we scroll through the data set, we will see that it's a little bit high. Maybe we can use 90. It seems to be a little bit low also. But anyway, we evaluate the data and the migration process by going through the various profiles. And once we've done that, we can start doing some interpretation. The color coding is following the various regulations. I think that Andreas already mentioned this. Under application settings, you have a few different marker templates. So we have one for the UK, US, and Canada, which follows the color coding for utilities, and also a separate one for Australia, which differs slightly. And this is the US, UK, and Canada templates. So let's, and then you can, if you hover your cursor above it, you can see also what the color is supposed to represent. In this case, electrical conduits or electrical cables. I select the color, I select the type of marker. I can change the size if I want. I can also use something called auto switch, which is a nice way of if you have parallel profiles. I tend to use this because as soon as I place my marker, as soon as I place this marker in my data, it will switch to the next parallel profile. So if I place the marker right here, oops, sorry, I deselected that one. It switches to the next profile. So I can go through the data set fairly quickly because they should be roughly in the same position. It's the same utility. and I will choose another utility. It's back at the top again. So now I select water. I'm not sure which one is, but I'm just going to pick one. I'll take this one. Still have that auto switch on. Okay, so I've entered 2 different types of utilities, and if I go back to the sitemap now, I can already now see where where I placed my markers. In this view, I can also, of course, view this from Street View, and I can see the area where I have set my markers for these 2 utilities. There are more utilities in this data set. I'm going to leave it with 2. Because our time is a little bit limited. But so I've migrated my data, I've made an interpretation. We can go to the 3D map, where we can also view the data in 3D. It will automatically actually connect these markers as a polyline. If I see that now, I think that these are fairly straight, but if I, for instance, select this profile, I left click on this profile, I go back to 2D, I can choose to, let's say, move this if I think it's wrong, then go back to 3D, and I will see that this marker has actually been moved. I'm just going to move it back. So then if I think these are right, I can connect these using the polyline tool. So all of the same markers of the same kind and same color will be connected, and they will be, if you export as DXF, they will also come out as lines. So for instance, if I move to the export, I will skip the things that Andreas already have covered. I will just focus on the interpretation of markers, in this case as text, for instance. I export this, and it will, as soon as it's exported, I have a folder called interpretation, where I have 2 small text files, one with the definitions that shows what the different colors represent, and what the symbols and what symbols I've been using. The actual export is this text file, which includes the profile name, the type and the symbol, the trace number, sample, and also the code. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Sorry for that interruption. And I think that I will stop here and hand back over to Andreas. He can show a few different types of MALÅ projects that we also support.
Yes. Let's have a look at object mapper projects and grid projects, something that's readily available to collect in our different instruments. It's just going to be a brief introduction. Let's create a new project. As I mentioned before, you can drop this in different ways. I have an object mapper baseline project here. I can drop that straight into the upload window and simply click upload. And the thing I wanted to highlight here is basically the red line that you can see through the data. That is the baseline that's been set when you've been out measuring. So if I toggle between the different profiles by using the page up and page down button, you can see that this is something that will be available and visible in all the profiles in this project. And if I move over to the 3D view, that's also something that's visible in the 3D view. And in this case, we also have some markers actually already added. And these are field markers that have been set when you've been out surveying. So these will also appear in your data. You have the option in the toolbox to tick and untick markers. And there's a distinction between the markers that you add in MALÅ Vision and the imported ones. So there are two different checkboxes for that. And as Jesper mentioned, if I untick the imported ones, if I zoom in a bit, make sure that we're in the first profile here, I'll use the auto switch function that Jesper has talked about, and I'll just pop in a few different markers to this data set, make it slightly smaller. This will be a fairly quick interpretation, so sorry if the markers are a bit out of line. I'll try to do this as correct as possible. So as you can see, it's a fairly quick process interpreting your data. Moving over to 3D, you get these markers. If you click create, you will also tie them together to a polyline. If I move over to the export tool, export data, and interpretation and polylines as DXF, you will have a zipped folder which you can click. If I open this up and double click that file, I have an Autodesk DWG TrueView installed, so that will open up the AutoCAD project. And you can actually see that the polyline that we just exported is imported and opened into this software. To end my section here, I would like to show you a grid project as well. And I'll also in the meantime show you how to open a project. So just simply click the open project button, select the project that you want to open. So this is basically, I'll remove the migration filter here so you can see the data. A grid project collected with the CX. So just browsing through the different profiles, you can see that there are some nice hyperbolas in here. The migration actually removes these. So if you're going to work with 3D, it sort of removes the legs or the arms of the hyperbola. So you will get something that looks more like what you're looking at in reality. Moving over to 3D and viewing the isosurface result of that, you can actually get a pretty decent image of the different rebars here in the concrete floor that we've measured. You can switch over to 3D Cube or Time Slice, of course, to look at this in a different way. So it's fairly easy to go from your raw data to interpretation and visualization. I would say that in importing a small project like this is 0.8 meters times 0.8 meters. So it would probably take you around 30 seconds to get to this point from importing the data. Okay, I think that's roughly what I had in mind right now. So Jesper, if you want to wrap things up, we'll continue on to that and later on to the Q&A.
But I need to turn on my microphone first.
Oh yes.
It's very important when you have a webinar to always remember to turn on your microphone. Anyway, it's not much left. We are keeping within our time limits. I can only add that as a summary, that the software is available at malavvision.guidelines.com. You register above, you get access to the free of charge MALÅ Vision community software immediately. And we are continuously, as we've said plenty of times already, we will continuously update this software, and the next release is planned for the end of March. if not sooner. And there will be some exciting new features in that. So make sure that you log on at the end of March or beginning of April and have a look. Apart from that, let's look at questions and see if we can answer them.
Yeah, and you can either pop those into the chat window, as I see you have been doing throughout the presentation, or you can actually raise your hand with that tool. That will allow us to give you access to asking your question if you prefer to do it that way. So let's start off with a few questions from the chat. Let's see. What about using GPS to create the 3D?
That's what we are doing. Actually, the 2D sections are based on the encoder wheel, so they will be the form or the response will be at equidistant sampling points. But we use the GPS coordinates to set the 3D volume. Therefore, there might be at times, depending on accuracy of the GPS, etc., it will be based on the GPS coordinates, and that's so that we have that each sample in each trace in each sample has a defined position based on the GPS coordinate information.
Another question: how much does it cost?
That was presented in this. Currently, we have a subscription-based extra storage base for the single tier, which is at $89 per month, I believe. And we are adding a different way of subscribing through the use of codes very shortly. It will be this month, where we can define any length of time period. So for those that needs longer time periods or forever, we can extend that by the use of a code. You showed the subscription page, I believe, in the software. Yeah. You can have it if you log on to MALÅ Vision. You can have a look at it, and there is a little field for codes, I believe, and where you can enter a code, and based on what you have paid for, you will have that time period available to you.
Yeah. Next question: can we export as shapefile format?
Not at the moment, but it's something that we have discussed and something that we are looking into implementing.
Yeah, and of course, if you're using a GIS software, most of them can handle a DXF, for example, if you
that is true too.
Import using their in-house import functionality.
I mean, we have a lot of things planned for this software, and it's based on the customer feedback that we are getting. And use the communication tool that is in the software. That actually takes all the requests directly to us, me and Andreas, and we will make sure that we prioritize them according to what most customers want. But we have already we have a long list of things that we want to implement. So it's not going to stop here. I mean, there are many things missing from a full-blown package, but we also want to keep it easy to use. That is the priority. We want to create a software tool that people can use without having to go through a library of documentation or sit through endless training sessions. So we need to add these carefully and with ease of use in mind.
Can we edit data from other GPR manufacturers, such as sensors and software?
We have had some requests for importing data, and we want to be able to import data from other manufacturers of GPR equipment. It's in the plan, and we've had some requests from people to open up this, and this is a planned development that we are going to do. But it's going to be based on user requests. So if we have a lot of people asking for sensor and software data, for instance, that is also what we are going to implement.
Will there be a webinar on 3D processing only for customers who aren't familiar with interpolating data?
I think that we will have plenty of different types of webinars on MALÅ Vision, especially as we are introducing new features into the software. And we've had some questions on the interpolation methods that we're using, and we are refining them as we're going on, with every iteration also. But so we will have separate sections where we present things. Otherwise, the interpolation methods that we're using will be described in the manual, if not already. I can't remember if we have included them yet.
I think it's in the process of being added,
Yeah.
so it will be in there. Talking about data safety, how to ensure data security?
We are basing it on a very secure platform, the world's most secure platform, the Microsoft Azure platform. And they are, I can't remember now exactly, but it's regarded as the most safe data platform there is. But remember, we also have the export tool that is very flexible, and you can, and I would, if I would be a user, regardless, I would always make sure that I would export or download my data from the platform to store locally on my own devices.
And it's a fairly quick process as well to drop those back in if you need to. So it's fairly easy.
Yeah, the software reads zip files, so it's a good way of storing locally, and then you can just drop them in case you need them.
We have some questions on the size of distributor accounts, and I think we can handle those separately. Severin, just send me an email, and we'll have a look at that. Do you have any comments about environmental processing data with the software, such as snow thickness, water table, stratigraphic layers?
It's funny because we collected some snow thickness data today using our geodrone. Unfortunately, I don't have them on my computer, but otherwise I could have shown you. We are looking at. When we are developing this, we have this production, which is for everybody. Then we, of course, internally we have different levels of testing, and once they've gone through these testing stages, and we deem that this is now fully tested and ready, then we are releasing it for the official version that everybody can use. And we are already looking at how to calculate volumes for various things, snow, including snow, etc. Because that is something that is important. It will be more important also going forward. So it might not be the first thing we release, but it will come, especially when we come into to layer detection, etc.
Yeah, we have the free draw tool, so that's possible to use if you need something right now. You can also add several markers of the same kind into the same profile, and then tie them together as a polyline. That will also give you sort of a layer interpretation in your profile. But as Jesper mentioned, we will expand and make that even better.
Yeah, and it's very easy to start throwing in different types of features into a software and making it very complicated. I'm sure that most of us who sit here and listening to this, all of us in this webinar, we have seen software solutions that become extremely complicated, and we want to avoid that. We want to make sure that we add features that are easy to use, and so therefore we have to be a little bit careful on how we do this, but because we want to create an easy to use tool, that's essential for us.
Okay, I think that was the end of the line of questions. If I haven't missed anything further up, I'll just have a brief look. Question, when you, the out-of-box depths, are they fairly accurate without adjusting according to the hyperbola?
You said out-of-box depth?
Yeah, I guess what the software provides as a starting point, and I would say no. or possibly it would depend on your data set. Sometimes it will match, but this is sort of a general value that we add as a starting point, and then you have to make either a hyperbola fitting or a migration to get to the right velocity of your profile and your data.
Yeah, or choose one of the preset velocities. But I would always recommend doing some sort of velocity analysis, either by using the hyperbola tool that was shown or the migration tools. And the software defaults, I think it defaults to 100 meters per microsecond. I think that is the default value that is given once you have imported your data. So I would urge anyone who is dealing with GPR to always pay attention to the velocities. It's really important in order to get the correct depth.
Yeah, velocities and the time zero needs to be correct.
Correct.
And then the depth to your different objects will be the most accurate. Okay. Anything else? Nothing else in the. There is an option for feet. You go to the main menu and set that to feet instead of meters, and that will transform the software to feet in all aspects. Time zero is set from the toolbox. Possibly easiest to share my screen again. And we have analysis. So you can either click automatically to have it set it automatically, or you can click manually. And then you can move this to the desired location in the profile to set the time zero.
Of course, you would remove the delete mean trace in the filter list before otherwise it will be very hard. Also, we should mention that that's one of the features that will be introduced very shortly. We will get more analysis tools into this to make setting the manual time zero even more simple. We will have a trace view window, and that is probably included in the next release.
Yep. Okay.
Very good. It's half a minute before the hour, Andreas.
Perfect timing as always.
You know, hello. We are a wonder of efficiency.
Okay. So thanks everyone for connecting. Please sign up and try it out, and get back to us with your feedback. We look forward to that. And if you have general input, you can email them to me and Jesper. There's been a lot of requests for getting a copy of the actual webinar, and that's something we will compile, and then we'll distribute that to the participants.
Yes, no problem at all. Thank you all, guys. It was good to be here with you presenting MALÅ Vision, and there will be a presentation soon again on this. As soon as we start releasing more features, we will do another webinar.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.